Hey everyone, this is Shalini Joshi Amdagni from magicalpainfreeliving.com, and welcome to today's Facebook Live, which is on the topic of overcoming 15 years of anxiety and dis-ease to feeling freedom and peace. Thank you for joining me today as I'm doing these Facebook Lives every week on Thursdays at 11 o'clock Bangkok time. So, I'm sharing weekly tips, tools, strategies to educate, to entertain, to inspire, and to make you aware so that you can use these tips and tools and benefit or share them with friends who may, need this information. So thank you for joining me. Hi, Cindy. Hi. Wow, I love your skiing video. Wow, that was amazing. You are such a pro, and I don't even know how to ski. Amazing. Hi, Simi. Wonderful to have you here. And today's topic is all about overcoming anxiety and dis-ease to feeling more freedom and peace. And in today's Facebook Live, basically, I'll be sharing with you. So here's my topic, okay? From anxiety and dis-ease to freedom and peace. And we're going to be, I'm going to be sharing with you a client story and 4 tips to manage anxiety. I'll be sharing with you some basic tips that if you are experiencing chronic anxiety, then some of the basic things that you can do. And I'll also be sharing a link with you at above in the instructions area, so you can go there. It's a video that's been watched over 44,000 times, and it's specifically on anxiety relief. So I am sure that if you experience any sort of anxiety, chronic anxiety, it will help you in some way or the other. I get all kinds of wonderful comments and feedback from that video. So I'm going to put the link up here. So thank you for joining me. Hi, Shobna. Hi, Ritu. Hi, Chaya. Hey, BJ. Long time no see. Hi, Anita. Wonderful to have you guys here. So today's topic is overcoming anxiety and disease and stepping into freedom and peace. If you have any thoughts on anxiety and stress, feel free to comment below. Or if you are experiencing some kind of stress or anxiety, feel free to share it below. And let me just begin by sharing with you, this little chart that I prepared. And we all go through periods of stress and anxiety. And so what's the difference, right? How do I know if I'm experiencing anxiety so I prepared this little chart. So right at the other end of the scale is no stress, right? You have feeling happy and calm and just in the flow. And then you move to some sort of stress, right? So maybe, everybody is at this place mostly at some time during the day, right? You're stressed, you need to get to the meeting on time, or you're delayed, or, you have a bunch of things to get through before the end of the day. So there is always some sort of stress prevalent, right? We are not always in this zoned out place throughout the day. So that's normal, right? To go through some level of stress. But as we find that, we are constantly under stress every other day, then we kind of start moving towards being anxious, right? You wake up feeling anxious and you're constantly under stress. It's not just, oh, I was stressed about that meeting and now it's okay. But it's kind of like chronic stress, okay? That eventually becomes anxiety. I don't know how to move my finger on this card. And so now, apart from stress, you're having these physical symptoms as well, where you're, maybe you're cramping up, you've got sweaty, you're breaking out in sweat, your heart is pounding, and anxiety is kind of like, it's a regular thing. It's a regular state of fear. It's a regular state of worry. You're constantly worried. You're worried about like something bad might happen. And there is always this fear of the unknown. So it's way stronger than just stress, okay? And even anxiety, like we can experience anxiety at the initial stages where I gotta go up and give a speech and I'm having butterflies in the stomach, and my heart is pounding. So there is some anxiety there, but it doesn't stay, right? It's just there, and when the event is finished, it's gone. But it's when it's a chronic thing where every day you're waking up with some sort of feeling of dis-ease, and you're going through the day and you find that you become like a worry worm. You're worrying all the time about something or the other. You're stressed that things won't go well, and it's kind of like a constant thing with physical symptoms. There's panic, there is cramps in the stomach, there is I've got some signs here, okay, signs and symptoms of anxiety. Yeah, so there's some irrational fears. That that's not a logical fear, but you're scared anyway, right? And there are situations where clients that I have, that they are so anxious that they avoid social situations, like they can't go to a grocery store to shop because they are anxious about bumping into people, like it's crowded, right? So social situations, some people find it hard to go to work because of, getting into meetings is, they feel anxious. So anxiety is a lot more intense, okay? And then this thing in the red here is kind of like a panic attack when, your head, your heart, some of the ways the clients describe to me is like they feel like they're having a heart attack. They feel like they're going to die for sure. They just can't get through this. And they feel their whole focus is on the bodily symptoms. Okay, so that's a full-blown panic attack. So I just wanted to clear up, the difference, because people say, well, everybody's stressed and anxious. Yes, we are. But there's a different, very different distinction between like panic attacks and very stressed or, chronic anxiety. So let me, if you have any questions here. Hi, Mayuri. Hi, Savneet. Hi, Sandeepa. Hi, Jacqueline. Thank you for being here. Hi, Natalie, for always joining. So here's the thing. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share with you a client story, and I'm going to share with you 4 tips that can help you manage anxiety instantly. I'll also share with you some basic things that you can do for yourself if you are already experiencing chronic anxiety. And I'm going to share a link of a video. It's a tap along video that has been viewed more than 44,000 times. It works. I get wonderful messages all the time about how it's helped them overcome their anxiety. So I'm going to share that with you all in this video. So stay tuned. Okay, going to the story of overcoming 15 years of anxiety. So, the client is, his name is Nadeem Salhani. Some of you may know him. He's the director of Obopan Dunkin' Donuts here in Thailand. And many years ago, I got an email. I think it was 2009 or 2010, or even earlier. I think 2008, 2009, when I got an email from a lady, and she said, Mr. Nadeem Salhani wants to have an appointment with you because he has some questions and he has concerns about his anxiety. And so we booked an appointment, and So on the day of the appointment, back then I was doing one-on-one sessions in my house live. That doesn't happen anymore. But back then, that's how it was. I had a room and I was doing one-on-one client sessions, and they would come to my house for 1 hour, 2 hour sessions. Sounds so far away, but so he, I heard the doorbell ring and I went up to greet Mr. Nadeem Salhani, and his face was flushed. His hands, because I shook hands, his hands were sweaty, and he looked really, very uncomfortable. And I said, what happened? And, he said that coming to an unknown place gave him a lot of anxiety. Getting into the lift, which he was unfamiliar with, even though it had stops on every floor, was really, it really freaked him. And since it was a new building, he didn't know the layout of the floors, and he didn't know where the exits were on each floor. And so it was really very scary for him, because he didn't know, like, if the lift stopped, where would he get out, and which exit would he take, and what was the plan, the plan of the building. So all of these things were giving him sweaty palms, stomach cramps, and his heart was pounding just coming up for the session. And so as we began, doing the sessions, and we started tapping just on the symptoms, I had to calm him down before we even began. And as we, if you don't know tapping, I'm going to put up the link for the video so you can get a feel, but it's basically emotional acupuncture. You tune into what's giving you all this anxiety, and you tap lightly on key acupressure points on your body. Okay, this is a great acupuncture point. It's called the collarbone point. And so we start tapping, and he calms down, and his anxiety, is way lower than when he just entered my house. And so, he starts telling me that he's had the anxiety for 15 years, and that it's started not so strong, but over the years it's become worse. And so some of the things he was struggling with was, he traveled for work, right? He was still director of Obopan Thailand and Dunkin' Donuts. And so he was expected to travel, but travel gave him a lot of anxiety. He had this fear of enclosed places. If he had to go to meetings, in Thailand, we have some of these high rises where the elevator doesn't stop until it's reached the 20th floor, right? Just to go fast. And so he could never take those elevators. And sometimes he had to attend meetings on the 30th floor. And so what would happen is that he would request for the meeting location to be changed, because he couldn't go up to the high-rise floor, because the elevator didn't stop at any floor, and he needed the elevator to stop at every floor, because otherwise, if something went wrong, right, your brain is creating doom scenario. If something goes wrong, how do I exit? Where do I exit? Where do I run to? It's going to be too much of a panic, so just not go to those high-rise elevators. So as you can see, that was really frustrating him. It was making him really anxious. And he had said that sometimes, his career was in jeopardy, because there were so many issues and so many setbacks for working, for meeting people, for going to different places, traveling, and just simple things like having a meeting somewhere. So he would have to ask for the meeting to be changed to somewhere on a ground floor so that he could go there. And that was really, and of course, he would have waking up in night sweats and cramping and feeling tensed during the day and not knowing how to manage the tensions. And he was also on antidepressants for 15 years. So as we started talking, led him back, trying to get to the root of what is, root cause. What are the underlying cause? Okay, you have all these symptoms going on. What's going on underneath? So I asked him, what was the first time that he can remember way back when he was a kid? When was the first time he felt really anxious? Okay, and I'm not going to tell the whole story here, but it was in relationship, something that was the experience was related to his mother. And the interesting thing was that even though he could go back and identify the experience that the first time he felt really anxious, he couldn't tell me the story, because when he tried to tell me the story, his throat would choke up. He would have these chest pains and he couldn't breathe. And so telling the story was a nightmare. And so we had to move really slowly every step. Like once he told me a sentence of the story, we would check in to see what's going on right now. Oh, I'm feeling this burning in my stomach. I'm feeling this tension in my stomach. My heart is pounding. And so we would tap at every other sentence to bring down the anxiety of what was going on, as he tried to tell the story. Actually, in EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, which is the main tool that I use, we actually have a technique called Tell the Story technique. And this is exactly what we do. We try to tell the story of this stressful experience that we had, and we try to calm that intensity by tapping on acupuncture points as you're tuned into this stressful, anxious experience. And so what happened was it took a really long time to get through this story, because there were so many physical symptoms. At one point, he thought he was going to be, having a panic attack. And so as we dug under the layers of his experiences and feelings of abandonment and feelings of loneliness and feelings of not feeling good enough, feeling guilt, all those underlying root causes that were resulting in all this anxiety that he was experiencing every single day. What happened was, after we did, he was able to tell the story, this abandonment sort of story, which was related to mom, without any symptom, without any, stiffness in the neck or tightness in the stomach or feeling like I'm having a panic attack or his chest pain. All those symptoms were gone as he told this very first story. And as we cleared up other experiences where he had experienced anxiety, I call it emotional spring cleaning, the emotional closets of your life, as we started doing that more and more and more. I remember he sent me an email one day saying, very excited, saying, oh, this weekend I was able to take the BTS, the metro with my daughter and take her to the dog show. And he couldn't get on to the metro. It was too crowded, too suffocating, too locked in for him. And so he was able to do that. After a while, he was completely free of his antidepressants, which was amazing because he had been taking antidepressants for 15 years. And, I did request him. I was so excited with the results. And back then I was part of this networking group called BNI Business Network International. It's the largest referral organization, business referral organization in the world. And I was part of that, and it was my presentation that day at the BNI meeting. So I invited him, and he actually came up the elevator, which was a high-rise elevator, and he also gave a live testimonial for me for the tapping process. And he was completely free. And there were times when, after our tapping experience, there would be a little bit of anxiety that would come up, and he would use the tapping to clear it. So there was no panic. There was no, no holding, no the feeling of being held back and not being able to travel and not being able to do this and worried that he's going to be fired if he doesn't, if this goes on. And so he was completely free of his 15 years of anxiety. Okay, so, what I want to share with you is that you can work in two ways to address anxiety, okay? There are two ways you can address anxiety. Number one is you can just manage the symptom right now, right? You can just manage, supposing you are feeling anxious right now. You can manage it in two ways. You can just, manage the current symptoms, okay? And the other way, which is really the deep-rooted way, which is what's going to help you get rid of anxiety once and for all, is to address the underlying root issues. It's no coincidence that you have anxiety and that there's nothing related. Like suddenly I have chronic anxiety. Doesn't happen, right? There's something that's been going on. There's some experience. Usually it's going way back in your childhood where you experienced some feelings of anxiety, maybe anger. Sometimes it's anger because it's not been expressed for so long, it's bottled up. It's like anxiety is also sometimes like, swallowed anger, swallowed fear that you haven't been able to express. And so now the body reacts with all these symptoms because the stress levels have gone way high and the body starts to react. And so you want to get down to the underlying root causes, which is usually, think of like the earliest incidents where you had anxiety. And I know it's hard to, sometimes access it, but that's where you want to look inside and see, instead of, taking the pills, and which is all helpful, right? You can take the pill and it still helps to manage it. But if you want to, what happens is when you manage it and a decade has gone by and managing it, it's going to get worse, right? It's not going to get better. So you have to address the underlying issues. And I wanted to share with you four steps. They're simple, and they're not steps that will get rid of the anxiety completely, but you can manage the anxiety feelings and the symptoms right now. Like just manage in the now moment anxiety. Okay. So the number one step is, notice where you feel the anxiety. If you have chronic anxiety, you feel it in your body. You feel it in your chest. You may feel it in your stomach. You may feel it in your heart. Okay. So number one thing is, first of all, because, a lot of people, anxiety can be very generalized. Like you ask people, how are you feeling? Anxious. Why? I don't know. Right? So it's very hard to address something that you have no idea what it is, because it's kind of generalized. Okay? So the best way to address it is to notice, where are you feeling it in your body? So if you're feeling anxious, notice where are you feeling it in your body? Is it in your throat? Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Wherever it is. And then maybe on a scale of 0 to 10, you rate it. 10 is I'm feeling so anxious, and 0 is there is no anxiety anymore. Okay, so just for your own benefit, so that you can measure it later, if something shifted for you or not, measure it on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 is very anxious. I'm feeling really, really anxious right now. 0 is no anxiety. So do that first step. Second is tap with your fingers on the collarbone point. I was just showing you, okay? So this is my collarbone. And you see the collarbone, just underneath the collarbone is that soft, mushy part. You can just go like this to tap under both the collarbones. And so as you are noticing where you are feeling the anxiety in your body, tune into that, okay? And just tap. And you can say it out loud to yourself. It's safe to release and let it go. I choose to feel safe and release it now. Just these 2 sentences, okay? It's really important, I feel, to say safe, okay? Because you're panicked, you don't know what's going on. And so, just tap on the collarbone area. It's very easy. You can be in the plane, you can be in a train, you can be walking if you're having anxiety. You can be doing anything. It's not hard to do this, right? And nobody, who cares what others think? I don't, after 10 years of tapping. So just tap here and tune into your body, because that's where the anxiety feeling is, and say it to yourself. It's safe to release this feeling now. I choose to feel safe, letting it go. I'm feeling safe, letting go of this anxiety now. Okay, and just keep tapping for a while. And number 3 step, what I make my clients do, hold hands on your heart and breathe in peace. So basically what you do is you just put your hand on your heart after you do the tapping, and just breathe in peace. Just hold the hands over the heart. I do it with my kids, I do it with my clients, I do it with myself. It's a very soothing, calming sensation. Physical touch is amazing. When people pat you on the back, it's a really, really comforting sensation. So just do that and breathe in a couple of deep breaths. And then go back to that feeling in your body. Go back to that feeling that you were feeling in your body. And now notice, on a scale of 0 to 10, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how strong is right now? So if it was like an 8, does it still feel like an 8? No, maybe it feels like a 6, okay? So then go back and notice, what is the feeling that I'm feeling right now? Where am I feeling it right now? And just repeat the process over and over. Do the same thing, I'm feeling it. Because what happens often is somebody will say, oh, I'm feeling it in my stomach, tap, 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 tap. Now it's in my chest, tap, tap, tap. Now I'm feeling it here. So it shifts, the energy is shifting, and the location of the anxiety is also shifting. So as you do these 4 steps, okay, notice where you feel the anxiety in your body. Number 2 is tap, very simply with your fingers, just saying, I choose to feel safe, letting this go. Put your hands over your heart, breathe in a couple of deep breaths, and just breathe in peace. Peace. Just say that and breathe in, and then go back. So as you repeat this, after a couple of minutes, you should be feeling way less anxious, way less stressed. If you're not feeling anxious, maybe you're just stressed, and you will feel way less stressed and anxious that way. Okay? So if you have any questions, hi Ram, hi Sabina, hi Papa, hi Shweta, hi Bita, hi Mayuri. If you have any comments or any questions, please feel free to ask me. But I wanted to share with you another little tip. Okay, so if you're someone who is already, having chronic anxiety, and I know because I have a lot of men with anxiety issues, and some of them have a really hard time, like getting out of bed, or going for, just doing the daily activities has become a big issue because of the anxiety, because of the panic attacks. And so here are some basic things that you absolutely want to do if you experience chronic anxiety. Okay, the number 1 is stay hydrated. I cannot stress this enough. You've heard it from the beauticians, right? 8 glasses of water a day. But from a technical point of view, in EFT, we say when you tap, stay hydrated, because, the tapping is like an electrical charge that travels through the body. And if you have a lot of knots and blocks, then the flow, it's like a short circuit in your electrical energy system, and then you have blocks, and over time they'll just create jams in the flow. And so when you drink water, you stay hydrated, and it kind of flushes out these blocks in the body. And for the what happens is, when you're anxious, eventually depressed, there's not much movement going on in your, the flow is jammed. So you want to drink water, you want to stay hydrated, so that there is movement of energy. And movement is the second thing. You got to move. Get out of the bed. Go get out of the house. Go for a walk. Go for a simple walk. Don't jog if you can't bring yourself to jogging. Don't do a brisk walk if you can't get yourself to doing a brisk walk. But at least maybe just walk around in your house. Just walk from one room to the other. You have to shift the energy and and allow it to move. Okay, I'm not a nutritionist, but eat healthy. Eat things. I had a guy who was eating, having sodas, pizzas, lots of coffees every single day, because he didn't want to go to a grocery store. He was a single guy, and didn't want to go. Social anxiety, because I can't get to the grocery store. Ordering pizza was like really easy for him. So you really want to change that. You really don't want to eat the same unhealthy, unnutritious food when you are in that state of anxiety. Anytime, but especially also, you want to do the right things for your body to function at its optimum. And daily hygiene. There are times when, because of anxiety, you have so much anxiety, you can't do this, you can't do this. And then I find a lot of people just don't do the regular things, like just take a shower. They'll just stay in bed and feel depressed. And just the act of going and taking a shower can really shift the energies. Listening to music can shift the energy. So these are just basic things that I've told my clients over time. 10 years that I've been doing this, I have lots of clients with anxiety issues, chronic anxiety. Sometimes it's bordering towards depression. And these are important tips, very basic tips, but also very important tips that can help you shift the energy and inspire yourself to get out there and do the things that are good for you, that will help you break free from this anxiety. So I'm just looking at the notes, okay. Yeah, so this is just, when you experience anxiety, the body is responding as if there is a real threat when there is no such threat. And that's the difference between, it's the flight and fight response, right? In the olden days, when men went hunting, they were scared that a lion is going to show up and they'll be eaten up. And so there was two options. There was either fight or there was flight. And nowadays, in this modern world, we don't have lions popping out of different corners of the city, but the lion is in the head. It's all inside. The anxiety is inside, and so the body starts reacting in different ways, even feeling like you're having a heart attack, even though there is no real threat. Just the act of being in a crowded room can feel like you're going to have a heart attack. So the other thing I want to mention about this feeling of having a heart attack, because I have so many clients with anxiety issues, is just remember that you are not going to die because of an anxiety or panic attack. That's a very good thing to remind yourself, is I'm not going to die. It's just a sensation. It's real. It feels real. It feels horrible. It feels like you really feel like you're going to die, and you feel shortness of breath and you're hyperventilating. But just remember and try to remind yourself that you will not die of a panic anxiety attack. Okay? And that's a good thing, because some of my clients said, they always try to remember that because it really feels so horrible. You feel like you're going to die, but no one ever died of an anxiety attack, okay? So, and it's not a real heart attack. It's not a real heart attack. It's just an imagined, perceived threat that it's an inner thing that's happening. And so there's nothing technically going wrong with your heart. So if you have any questions, let me know. I think I've covered, where's my list? Okay, here we go. So, okay, yeah. So so basically, I'm going to post a link for my YouTube video, which is called Overcoming Anxiety Using EFT Tapping, and it is a video that has been watched over 40,000 times, and it is my most popular video because I get so many comments, feedbacks. I travel a lot, and then people tell me, oh, but we watched the video and I'm free of anxiety. I mean, they've used it over and over and over again. So I know that if you are experiencing, even if you're experiencing stress, but especially anxiety, then it will help you. And so I've already shared the 4 steps. This is something you can do right away, right? Notice where you're feeling the stress, anxiety in the body. Just tap, tuning in. Don't just blindly just do it like that. That may also help because it's like doing acupuncture, but we are doing emotional acupuncture, which is we are thinking about what's stressing us and creating this resistance within, and then tapping, and then do that little exercise, even though it looks really simple, putting a hand on your heart and just breathing deeply and breathing in peace, and then rechecking so you can already apply this process right now. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, then you can watch the video because it's much more detailed, and there's, I'm doing a whole session of tapping there. So follow along with that. And okay, Ram has a question. During EFT, when I tap, I get a sense of clearing and I feel good, but the pattern comes back. When does one know that you're really healed? That's a great question, Ram. And of course, when you're really healed is when it doesn't come back, right? The thing with anxiety is it keeps coming back, it keeps coming back, it keeps coming back. And that's what I was saying. There are 2 ways to manage anxiety. And one is, just coping with anxiety in the moment, but that's not the real deal, but it helps anyway, right? If you have anxiety, it helps to just be calm in the moment. But addressing the root causes, and I have to say, it's always something that was going back to when you were a kid. Okay, so Ram, your question that, the pattern comes back tells me that there are some uncleared old underlying root emotional causes that, that hold that anxiety within, and it's like, you've seen a tree, right? That diagram with the tree and the roots underneath and the fruits on the tree, and if you don't deal with the root issues, then the fruits don't change. And so for you, Ram, I know you've been tapping regularly, but you have to go back and find, like, when was the first time you noticed this started? Go back as far as you can and notice when was the first time that you experienced this anxiety. Okay, you have to go way back in time. I don't know if it was during childhood, if it was, some of my clients, like for this, in this story, there was this feeling of abandonment. I feel abandoned. I feel guilty. There was a lot of guilt. There was feelings of abandonment. Sometimes there's a lot of anger at a parent. It could be mom, it could be dad. So you have to explore a little bit and see when was the first time, because that is like the root trigger. And there are so many other aspects that I can't get into right now. But that would be the thing to do, is not just look at the symptoms that right now and just manage those symptoms. That's helpful. But if you want to break the pattern, then you got to go back and notice, when was the first time I felt anxious? Okay, when was that very first experience that I had? And sometimes you can get to it, sometimes you can't get to it, but it doesn't matter. Just get to the earliest ones, because once you start releasing and clearing that, maybe the energy system, brings up for you other similar experiences that you would say, oh my God, I didn't even think that I was still holding on to that stuff. I didn't even think that that experience was so painful and it's still hurting. And so it's like peeling the onion layers. So just try to go back as much as you can to that first experience, and then it's called follow the chain of pain, the chain of what else was going on, and clearing those feelings. And usually, many times it's related to our loved ones, our immediate family, our parents, and things that were being said and things that were not said. I had a client who had so much anxiety, and the very first experience, this is for you, Ram, is that she could remember standing outside her school and always being the last one to leave the school, because her dad or her mom were always late. They were the last to show up. The parents were divorced, okay, and they took turns to pick her up. Sometimes it was dad's duty, sometimes it was mom's duty. And, she would have to have one teacher wait for her until like half an hour after the whole school was gone. And she always had this thumping in her heart, this anxiety. Will they show up? Will they not? Because she had seen them fighting, and, they had got divorced. And so that was already a big trigger, right? You can see if your parents got divorced, as a kid, you're going to feel really anxious. So for her, what she remembered was that I always felt anxious waiting for my parents to show up. And she never trusted that, will they show up? And since they had divorced, she had this feeling, will they leave me too? Will they one day just not show up at school? And then what's going to happen? So there were all these doom scenarios playing in her head. And it is a very methodical, approach. It's, in EFT, we call it the art. It's an art, right? Because you go and you follow the different threads of what's showing up in your energy system. So that's why I said, just go back to the first incident. As you begin to work with that, and how to work with EFT, go down and see where that leads you. Because when I worked with this girl, it wasn't just clearing the feeling of anxiety that no one's going to show up. But even before that, she was so anxious when her parents were fighting. Then she was so anxious, this choice of who do I have to live with. So there was so many incidents, and you've got to clear that emotional jungle. Okay, you've got to release the negative, the anxious intensity of all those experiences that you experienced as a child. And the more you let it go, and the more you let it go, the more calmer it is inside. When you think of your past, when you think of your childhood, the more likely that these anxiety symptoms will be gone for good. So I hope that was helpful for you, Ram. Thank you for asking the question. So if you have any other questions about anxiety, please feel free to post them below. If you think this sharing will help people who are suffering from anxiety, I know millions and millions around the world suffer from anxiety. So if you feel called, and if this resonates with you, do share it. Do tag your friends who might benefit from this. Thank you for joining me. Thank you everyone for joining me. And I look forward to sharing more tips, tools, strategies in the upcoming Thursday weekly Facebook Live. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye guys. Bye for now.